guys, it's Matt. Before the chapter 13 reading, just a few quick notes because I'm probably about to lose a fourth of the people listening or that potentially would read the book. These are people, and I still am this way, but I was hardcore this way when I had the Texas Shrug channel. They want the hardcore, juicy conspiracy. They want a laundry list of all the fake events, the reality anomalies, the glitches in the matrix. It's all coming. And I understand this lead-in. We're still in the lead-in part of the book. It's enormous. It's just too much for many people to stick with. So even if you have to go away from this chapter or a few chapters, I hope you'll pop back in. I do have all that conspiracy documented because I was there. I was there making the videos and paying as much attention to it over the past 10 years as it was happening as anybody. Anybody. And I have all the notes, all the details. Like you could say to me, the Pulse event in Orlando, and I would be able to tell you, because the fraud number one, his name's Christopher Hansen. Fraud number two was Norman Cassiano. Fraud number three, Angel Cologne. These were the main crisis actors. I have all that type of history documented, and I have it documented in the book. But you know where it's documented? Right up here, like I just spouted out. Because I've just been into it for. I could tell you every bit of detail about Sandy Hook. There's only one other person that Robin, our friend Robin, knows more, or potentially whoever was Barry Soetoro, not the president, the channel. Then I'm probably third in terms of being able to. I could talk for 24 hours at a podium about the fraud and every single detail in Sandy Hook. So people want that stuff, and it's all coming. But again, this book was written for the newbie. And see, if it was a book format, somebody could they know they could flip to the middle, and they know it's in the middle, and they could come to this section saying he has this gigantic laundry list as to why this world isn't real, why this world is some sort of fluid reality or matrix. And I'll tell you why I wrote this chapter in a moment. But if it wasn't for you, you could then flip through it, 20 pages, go, nah, I'm not gonna bother with this. And that would be unfortunate because a lot of people, when they hear this topic, they immediately get a little bit triggered, and there's about, I don't know, it's like a fifth of the people that come to these types of channels. They don't want to hear that we live in some sort of quantumly fluid reality or some sort of matrix. They don't want any part of that for some reason. And I call it a little bit of triggering. But because of that, some people really irritated me a few months back, and I spent weeks researching every possible bit of evidence that points to the fact that things are really solid and this world is real, and then every possible bit of evidence from every different place I could find, weeks and weeks of research, making an argument why likely this isn't real at all. And it's at minimum 10 to 1, the side that nothing is real. It's more like 20 to 1. In fact, if, I don't know, without any notes, without any preparation, I would take a podium against some Harvard physical sciences professor who's proved the world is real, and I would love to I would debate somebody like that with no notes, and it would be 10 to 20 to 1 in terms of the things I could produce versus I don't even know what they would say. How do you? And I get into that. What do you? The five senses tell us things are real. That's basically all people have. So this is the complete laundry list, and I try to make it. At times, it's a little scientific. There's not a lot of opportunity to insert humor. I try to, do as much of that as I can. But this chapter is not going to be for everybody. And if you are one of those people that go, I don't want to entertain this as some sort of fluid reality or illusion or holodeck or dream state. Well, if you just skip the chapter, you're right back where you started. If you have an open mind, this chapter might get you thinking and go, well, it is 10 to 1 or 20 to 1 that this ain't real. So that's the point. I just wanted to say, for those getting frustrated because the lead-in is like, how many hours are we up to? And we're still kind of in the lead-in. I have all that documentation of the fake events and all of it. Everything. Get into the conspiracy regarding the Statue of Liberty. I mean, all that's coming. But again, this is written for the newbie. You can't, in page 1 for the newbie, the idea behind the book is you could see somebody coming out of the grocery store and just go, here, read this. And first page, Sandy Hook's a fraud, Robbie Parker's a fraud. They're going to close the book. The only chance is this giant lead-in and establishing as an author some credibility with the reader. So ultimately, I want to entertain you guys, and I'm even reworking some chapters and doing that the best I can, knowing that you guys know as much as I do about a lot of this stuff. But if and very few people have given me suggestions on the book. Very few people. I'll take it. Matt, this whole part, that last part of chapter 5 or whatever, that sucks. Remove it. Nobody will understand. I'll take that constructive criticism. Please, please give that to me. Hardly anybody's done that. I've got a lot of positives. But if there's something that just doesn't work for you, please let me know. How powerful would it be? Let's say this is massaged and reworked. And to have something like a tome it is, right? A tome, something you could literally hand your brother-in-law and say, read this. And if you come out the other side thinking the world is what you thought it was, then okay, but at least you read it. The idea behind the book is to be able is to entertain the old guard, but to be able to hand it to just somebody that sits down in front of their TV dinner and thinks Anderson Cooper is telling 100% of the truth, and everything they ever told us in school is real, and NASA's never lied about anything. Somebody like that, you hand them this, and the idea is, and what I tried to do is, I don't see how anybody, especially when we get to the list, the what is real list, if the world were real list, this list is just page after page of reality glitches and anomalies, and I don't see how anybody could come out the other side thinking, at least having an open mind, that something really bizarre is going on here and far different from what they thought. So I know the opening's gigantic, guys. I just, if it's not for you, I'll try to be more descriptive as to what's coming in each chapter, and just pop back in a week or so and see if I'm getting into the type of conspiracy that you want. There's nothing wrong with gravitating towards that. Understanding that Sandy Hook is a fraud is absolutely one of the major stepping stones. Things like that is a stepping stone to understanding what we need to understand about this reality construct. And I don't know. It's not all fear porn and things. No, it's necessary. Understanding those types of frauds is a stepping stone that's necessary. I just don't think once we understand it, we should move on. We shouldn't dwell on it, because then it does become a negative and a weight on us. Actually, something that the system wants us doing, chasing those types of breadcrumbs. This lead-in was a lot longer than I expected. Just wanted to make sure, if you do go away chapter to chapter, look at the description. I'll be more descriptive in the description as to what I'm going to be talking about. And if it's not for you, I hope you'll check back in a few days or a week. Chapter 13. The following is a summary list of evidence that spans the gamut, from science to common sense, that life on Earth is far less real than almost everybody thinks it is. Number 1. It can be basically demonstrated that time does not exist. If time is an illusion, all of reality breaks down as not real. Just number 1, if we can see that time is an illusion, you can throw everything else out the window. Number 2, science has no explanation at all for the very small, called the quantum or quantum particles. For example, science understands how electrons flow, and thus we have electricity in our homes. However, science doesn't know what an electron really is. We've learned to use things without understanding them. Well, that didn't work out very well in Jurassic Park. I hope it works out for us. No one can explain the paradox of the very small. For example, if you ask somebody what the basic building blocks of the universe are, they'll say atoms. When you ask them what an atom is made up of, most people will know about protons and neutrons and electrons. When you ask what those things are made up of, people generally get stuck. Now don't yell quark back at me. Who cares if there's such thing as a quark or not? To me, Quark is a tranny bartender on Deep Space Nine. The point is, Are we to believe that there's always going to be a smaller and smaller particle, even trillions more to discover, like an infinite set of Russian nesting dolls? At some point, a small particle or a subatomic particle or quantum particle, call it what you want, must be comprised of itself and only of itself. From our understanding, that's impossible. So what if you went to bake brownies and you looked at the recipe and it said, add 1 brownie? It wouldn't make sense, right? Ask yourself this question. Why hasn't any teacher you've ever had in your life in any school perform this simple mental exercise with your class, that you can't keep going backwards into smaller and smaller particles forever? Number 3, science can't explain the very large either. So isn't this science wonderful? Explain the very small. Oh, we can't. Explain the very large. We can. Well, great. Explaining what's in the middle in my room, that's real wonderful, Stephen Hawking. So in terms of the very large, they don't have a clue. What's the exact shape of the universe? They don't know. Well, they can give you a lot of mumbo-jumbos in a science book, so what? Where are the borders of the universe? When you say it's expanding, Mr. Hubble, what's the universe expanding into? Oprah Winfrey's belly? Where did the universe come from? If you tell me about a Big Bang, Mr. Scientist, well, that might be the same guy that yelled quark at me in the last section. Where did the matter come from in the Big Bang, or that made up the Big Bang in the first place? Is the Big Bang the chicken or the egg? Obviously, this type of paradox could go on forever. They have no answers for any of it, but of course they laugh at religious people. Now, how can a clown like Neil deGrasse Tyson, with no real answers, mock others for holding alternate beliefs? All the little letters on their business cards will never allow themselves to admit that they know nothing of these big topics. Saying in public, these scientists admitting that we don't know jack shit about these topics is not very good for business, publishing books, or tenure. What I'm saying is, if you have a certain amount of status at a university or in the scientific community, you can't admit you know jack about this important stuff. Number 4, we already spend a third of our lives living in a simulation. It's the artificial reality of sleep and dreams. When you're dreaming, do you know you're dreaming? Of course not. You acknowledge you spend over 25 years of life in a total fantasy, but this life, the waking world, must be absolutely real. What the Where does the dream itself then come from? Really stop to think about it for the first time in your life. Think hard. These are scenes, dreamscapes, and scenarios created by nothing that you know of as you, which should be impossible. Because aren't you in control of your own thoughts, your own brain? While running from a monster in a dream, where's the monster coming from? Who chose the monster's shape and color? Understand that there's some very smart people who would say that dreams come from somewhere else and are not made by you inside a mushy cholesterol brain. Number 5, as to why this life might not be very real. Number 5, everything is built of atoms, and the problem is atoms are more than 99 point whatever empty space. Then how is anything solid? If a brick is 99 point whatever empty space, how does dropping one on your foot even hurt? Water shouldn't get you wet. If you reach out to catch a football, why don't the atoms in your hands blend right into the atoms of the football, so it basically becomes part of your hand, or at least sticks to your hands like Velcro? It gets even stranger. Atoms never touch each other. The outer edge of an atom is orbiting electrons. So how does anything ever touch or bang into each other? Okay, magnetism, there are a lot of explanations. But again, it does blow one's mind to think of this much empty space and everything around us is solid. So your hand never actually touches the football you just caught, yet you feel it. You feel it. How? This world is likely an illusion of some kind. Number 6. Most science already admits that nothing is real. It's called quantum physics and quantum mechanics. The double-slit experiment, first conducted in 1927, showed that particles can be both solid and waveform at the same exact time, depending on if they're being observed or measured in some way. It demonstrated that nothing has consistent solid form until looked at. I know that sounds impossible. If this is new to you, it won't be new to most people listening. It's literally old news. Literally tens of thousands of pages have been written on collapsing the wave function. If you're not familiar with quantum physics and specifically this double slit experiment, please know it's accepted by every physics professor in the world. Now, I know it seems hypocritical for me to bash mainstream science in one paragraph and then use mainstream science in the next paragraph to support my position. But there's really two types of science here, folks, the way I see it. There is the science that comes down from on high, from Mount Olympus, from the control structure, through the idols of the system, like Stephen Hawking and Mr. Hubble that said the universe is expanding, and all the big names like Einstein. Then there's a lot of just regular old guys and gals who teach at the physics department down at your local community college or at the University of Alabama or the University of Wisconsin. Just regular people that put their pants on every day, put their pint of vodka in their coat, and go to work. This double slit experiment is real because it's been verified and confirmed now for something like 80 or 90 years. It's been conducted by too many regular people at the university level, people that aren't in on it, people that aren't part of the control structure. So at this point, when they tell me that a quantum particle behaves differently, whether it's observed or not, it's been proven too many times to throw that out as that's just fake, like everything else in the system. Number 7. From neurosurgeons to psychiatrists, they do understand a great deal about the brain, but they don't understand how the brain creates what we know of as consciousness. For example, some tenured PhD can point to the regions of the brain responsible for motor function, and this part's responsible for vision, and this part over here, emotion, and this part pain, but they don't have the first clue about consciousness. You'll hear a lot of mumbo-jumbo about electrons firing and neurons connecting and blah, 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 but they don't know crap about cogito ergo sum. Cogito ergo sum. My Latin isn't really good. I'll brush up on it, sorry. But it means I think, therefore I am. In other words, if science creates a computer that fires the same electrical impulses as your brain does in exactly the same manner, does anybody think that consciousness has been created? Of course not. Most of modern science would have you believe that's all you are. All you are is just neurons firing electrical signals inside some gray, mushy pile of mashed potatoes called cholesterol. Now, is that what your inner knowing tells you about who you are? Of course not. If that was the case, science would have been able to replicate human consciousness a long time ago using some sort of computer and artificial intelligence. Millions of people would currently be in love with their operating system, like in the movie Her. Of course, there's something more to consciousness than just signals and electrons firing. Some of the smartest people in history, certain types of shamans, mystics, bodhisattvas, different types of people that think outside the box, believe that consciousness resides somewhere else, even outside of this realm. Of course, outside of your mushy brain. It may only interact with what you call you on Earth through the brain, which could simply be a connecting device that links your fleshy avatar to your consciousness, perhaps somewhere else. What could the brain in the skull be then? Well, the brain could simply be a doorway or interface that allows the real you to navigate this 3D environment. The brain perhaps is the computer or processor that interprets the thousands of signals that come in through the body's senses, from a blinking light to a pinprick. When you place your hand on the stove and you pull back quickly because it's hot, some would say that consciousness had nothing to do with that automatic response. So it's possible the role of the brain may end with instinct and subconscious processes like sweating and heartbeats, for example. Thoughtful consciousness is probably somewhere else. And if that's the case, you're not your body at all. Where the brain and consciousness come together is likely best called mind. In my opinion, a blend of both. The brain may also be a translator in the other direction. For example, brain as a receiver needed to execute the conscious intention of, say, getting out of bed in the morning by moving your legs. Brain could simply be the way consciousness is received and projected into this 3D realm. Perhaps that's what the scene in the third Matrix movie was alluding to. Agent Smith, originally a computer program, had achieved consciousness and eventually found a way to insert his consciousness into a human body. Remember that scene where Neo finally looked up at him and recognized him, and he said, "Look, Mr. Anderson, beyond these dull cow eyes." He said something like, see your enemy. So when the body occupied by Smith, the avatar body or the human body occupied by Agent Smith, was killed, was Smith as his essence, was it destroyed? No, not in the movie. Back in the Matrix, Smith was still Smith. Perhaps the movie was assuming that Smith used the same methods to transfer his consciousness to influence the human body that was host to Smith for a while, the same methods that we do. Yes, I said influence a human body. If you set out running up your driveway, you have no control over heartbeats or the impulses to fire your leg muscles. You as consciousness have no control over most things your body does. A pilot simply steers the jet plane. He doesn't control 99% of what's happening behind the scenes, like how much hydraulic fluid is being pumped around the moving parts. He simply asks for the landing gear to go down by pushing a button, and it comes down. How it comes down, he probably doesn't know. The jet makes that happen by itself. Your consciousness is the pilot of this avatar body. In a way, a commercial jet pilot resides inside the head of the plane. The plane is like your avatar body. Like a military pilot flying a drone in Iraq from an air-conditioned base in Nevada, your consciousness may beam into your avatar body from somewhere else. In my opinion, this is not possible, it's likely. Number 8. If the universe is not some sort of simulated realm, then why do geometric ratios like pi, and particularly the golden ratio of 1.618, appear at every level of the universe, from quantum particles to flower petals, seashells, hurricane spirals, etc., etc.? If science says the Big Bang just blowed up out of the blue, what could be more random than that? You wouldn't have examples of geometrical perfection and mathematical coding popping up in thousands and thousands of places, would you? The golden ratio and pi even appear in the construction of the Great Pyramid. The evidence is beyond overwhelming that this is a scripted reality construct, and very little is random. You'll soon understand that ancient civilizations had perhaps 100 times the knowledge of, quote, modern man. You'll see the same numbers and code represented in thousands of natural and ancient things, making Stephen Hawking and his disciples, quote, random universe theory from a Big Bang blowed up look ridiculous. The Big Bang Theory itself, not the TV show, but the real Big Bang Theory, goes against one of the main cornerstones in all of science, that everything in the universe goes towards the state of entropy or chaos. For example, at some point a glass will break, and it will stay broken, or broke. In the future, 1,000 glass pieces have no chance of just coming back together to form the wine glass again. It'll never happen, even if you wait billions and billions of Carl Sagan years. The eggheads tell us that things in this material realm only move in one direction unless acted upon by energy and intention. So in the case of the Big Bang, we have the most massive chaos imaginable ever in the universe. Now we have then things moving in the direction of incredible order and structure, life itself. Sorry, impossible per your own rules, Carl Sagan. Number 9. Could the planets, stars, and constellations influence our lives if things in this realm are as real as we think they are? Oh my God! This author, Matt, he's an astrologer too! Get me out of here! Listen, I admit, your author knows nothing about astrology, but I'm wise enough to notice something that's ignored by modern experts. Every ancient culture on Earth, every single one, going back to the beginning of recorded time, looked to the stars for answers. In modern society, ignorance is a synonym for one's propensity to regurgitate the script. Here's the script of what you were given about astrology your entire life. Ancient cultures? What the hell could those primitives know, dancing around fires with the balls slung in walnut shells? Oh, you mean those morons who built the pyramids that couldn't even be built today with cat equipment? You mean those pyramids that encode the golden ratio in their proportions and very subtly have 8 sides, not 4? 8 sides. Oh, those primitive idiots of antiquity? How about those morons who constructed the Mayan calendar? Guess what? The ancients knew many, many things we don't know now. We are ignorant by their perspective. It doesn't matter if we have little technological devices like iPhones. They'd laugh at that bullshit. That's a given. In any area that's not related to an iPhone, they were much more advanced than we are. This cannot be argued at this point. Now, knowing that every single ancient culture used the stars and modern man does not, should be all you need to know. Thousands of ancient cultures knew something about how the stars and planets influence our lives. The script people generally and desperately want to spit out in their reply is about how astrology is just kid stuff delivered in the back of newspapers or by scam artists who read tarot cards on Coney Island. This is beyond ignorant. Think about it. Millions of people over the past 10,000 years were leading their communities by looking to the stars. I guess they were all flim-flam men and women scamming their neighbors for money, and they were just charlatans who were lucky to never have their ruse discovered by the townsfolk. See, look, if looking to the stars didn't work and there was nothing to it, they would have known it didn't work, say, in the first month. It wouldn't have lasted like for 10,000 years. Funny, they continued to practice it for all of recorded history. Guess what? Those in control continue to use astrology today. Why it exists as a laughable joke in the back of the newspaper as a horoscope is to distract from the real truth of it. The people who run this world use astrology every day. Some base their lives around it. Washington, D.C. was laid out and founded based on the stars. This is a fact. I don't care if Don Lemon ever or never spoke about it on CNN. Don Lemon's a moron. I don't have time to prove it here. If it didn't work, it wouldn't have continued for 10,000 years. Now, again, I admit, I don't know squat about it. But I can look around and see the ancient cultures and the people that have used it. And they ain't dummies. How long can a man continue to sell hair tonic, for example, hair tonic for baldness, when it doesn't grow a single hair? When all that's in the jar is corn oil and moose piss? Would he have 10,000 years of good business selling his snake oil? Or would people generally stop buying it? Maybe it would have taken about a month before he was run out of town. I guess all those kings using astrologers generation after generation were just fooled idiots. Number 10, as to why this world may not be very real. We find that news events and other aspects of what should be a random, physical reality seem to embed numerical codes in the event itself. This is related to gematria. If it happened just 4 or 5 times, it would be a coincidence. How about thousands of times? Even in mass casualty events, or even in certain terrorism events, the same numbers appear over and over at far too high a frequency for it to be random or natural. These numbers in the occult have meaning and weight that stand out over other numbers. 3, 7, 9, especially 9 paired with 11, 11, 13, 19, 21, 23, 33, 88, and of course 666, which normally when it pops up does not mean what people or the profane have been conditioned to think it means. No, it just doesn't always mean the devil. There are other meanings to these numbers. That's why it's called occult or hidden. Now, this list of numbers is not exhausted, and there are others, of course. I'm no initiated expert in any of this. Trust me. I know next to nothing about what these secret societies are up to, or what they do behind the closed doors. But I'm expert at recognizing it. I'm expert at sniffing it out, okay, even though I'm a profane slob. Simply assigning 666 to the devil is a dumbed-down version of reality. Specifically, we seem to see the same numbers over and over again in major news headlines and even historical archives. What are the chances that these were the circumstances of the 2017 Manchester, UK concert bombing? Remember that Ariana Grande thing? Georgina calendar, Gregorian calendar, was the first victim, supposedly? Well, here's what we have. The attack was on the 22nd of May. 22 people died. The attack occurred at 22.33 BST. It's at British Standard Time, I guess. The attacker was a 22-year-old man. The longitude of the attack was minus 2.2. Really? As a side note, the date of the Norway attack was July 22nd. The Woolwich attack, May 22nd. The Brussels airport attack, March 22nd, or 322. There's another number we should put back up in our occult list. The 2016 Munich attack, July 22nd. The London Westminster Bridge attack, March 22nd. I've seen other reality junkies like me find other strange synchronicities associated with other numbers. I've seen it done in depth with the number 43, associated with almost 100 different news clippings. 99 and other numbers pop up from time to time. Now, at about the 1000th coincidence, where some sort of code was observed inside a major news event, a few smart people began to see that it can no longer be random. This means some sort of reality script is running. I don't know who's delivering it. We'll ponder that going forward. We have not yet discussed the nature of how the script is being laid down, but this segment suggests a simulation is far easier to manipulate than real stuff is to manipulate. As discussed, people can play amazing mental games with themselves despite the evidence. If random ingredients were thrown into a child's Easy Bake oven and 1 hour later it produced a casserole that Wolfgang Puck would be envious of, there are actually people who would claim it was all just a big coincidence. They must call it a coincidence, because to admit that what really happened is so bizarre, it's too scary for them to admit that something other than their little confines of reality are on the table. Anything that upsets their apple cart of normalcy can't be given any legitimacy because it destroys one's worldview. Now, I don't think that's the problem of people listening to this, of you and I, but it is a major symptom of the problem with too many people around us. Number 11. There are tens of thousands of observed and documented, quote, glitches in this reality matrix. If the environment around us is artificial, it would leave evidence as to its imperfection all over the place. Many say that because there are in fact glitches in reality, it leads one to conclude that this existence on earth is not of God, one may say, but rather was reconstructed by lesser beings who in some way hijacked or corrupted a creator's original intention. This is a massive topic, but many smart people believe what exists today is some kind of reality overlay, a corruption, or a virus of some kind overtop the original. All the incongruent realities or reality glitches proves evidence for this line of thinking. We see this stuff almost every day now. The strange anomalies in this life matrix come in all forms. We have the Mandela effect on one end of the spectrum, and on the other end, things like Chris Hurst announcing just a few hours after his fiance's murder that JMU had established a scholarship fund in her dead name. It's simply not possible. Establishing a scholarship fund in a university takes weeks, not hours, especially after a fake murder on live TV. Now, many believe these, quote, glitches in the matrix, many believe they're put there on purpose for us to see. But that's a topic for later. Of course, I understand crisis actors don't prove a reality illusion as much as they prove controllers delivering a script. But in a way, much of the nonsense in staged events can be interpreted as glitches in the matrix by those looking to gather such evidence. Note, all of what I just presented is reference to the fake 2015 WDBJ, quote, reporter shooting of Allison Parker by the old Irishman Vester Lee Flanagan. He was a young black man, not old Irishman. That's a bad joke. If you're shocked by what I just said, I will cover it later. Give me a chance to prove that I'm either sane or crazy. You can see for yourself which one it will be soon enough. As I mentioned a few chapters back, I'm remaining religion neutral. But how a lot of smart people explain what is going on in this reality is similar to the most famous story in the Bible, the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Many people believe God created this earth, or created this plane of existence, no matter what you want to call it, and something came along and corrupted it. Now that's not hard to figure out. It's not a real hard argument to make that something corrupted it if one simply looks around or looks out the window in 2019. How else can one explain why Al Roker and Oprah can put on and then shed hundreds of pounds? Actually, Al Sharpton did it too. Beyond joking around about the characters of the script, The world gives us never-ending war, never-ending poverty, never-ending disease, etc., etc., etc. The general conditions of misery here never improves over time for certain regions of the world. It's generally better in the West than in Africa, for example. But whatever our own state of misery is anywhere, it never improves, although one is relatively better than, say, another. Many say, if there was no hidden hand over reality, humans would have learned to live together in harmony by now. Now, please don't say I'm naive. I certainly do understand the nature of man, and quote man, and that conflict of some kind is inevitable. But in terms of the amount of war, the amount of devastation, death, and disease that we witness away from the cozy confines of the West, to me it's all clearly orchestrated. Why they work to actually create misery is a discussion for later. As mentioned earlier, if you conclude that you live in some sort of simulation, that doesn't mean you simply are another sim in a video game. As you already know deep down, it's almost assured that a part of you is immortal, whether you call that soul, spirit, or whatever. However, to many smart observers of reality, the mistakes, or what are called glitches in this matrix, are now too numerous at this point to believe the source of all creation, or God, created this particular reality construct, quote, as is. It was likely messed with by or hijacked by something. Call reality bastardized or adulterated if you want. Think of a computer operating system that has been connected to every porn website in the world without antivirus protection for a full year. Would you want to do your taxes on that computer? It wouldn't even probably boot up. The smartest people I know believe that reality was once pure or even of God potentially, and has been corrupted in some way. Don't believe me? Just watch the world news say 5 nights in a row. The news of today appears ridiculous. I would laugh at it if the wars weren't really killing people every day. Of course, we are so habituated to it, we accept the buffoonery of what the news anchors present as normal. To put it eloquently, nothing makes any friggin' sense anymore in life. From the absurdity of the last election cycle between Trump and Hillary, to mass shootings where a family member has never ever shed a tear, nothing makes sense anymore. If you haven't paid attention, watch next time. Go back and watch endless interviews of the shooting events. It's not just Johnson & Johnson that has no more tears. With these victims, or the victims' families, there are never tears, ever, for a decade. So what the heck is going on? Now, glitches in your life matrix come in many forms. From the physical impossibility of a solar eclipse to the political impossibility that weak little men like George Bush, Jimmy Carter, and Barack Obama could be elected to the highest office, president. There are tens of thousands of documented examples that produce what I call incongruent reality. If you know how to read it, there's a ton of truth in the Bible. The Bible tells us the opening scene, for example, reality was X, and then real quickly reality was changed to Y. The first few pages of Genesis is about exactly what nuts like me put forth. That reality in some way was hijacked by something. On Monday the world was a certain way. A serpent came along, influenced mankind. Call it what you want. I'll call it influence. And then the world was changed forever on Tuesday. The serpent is a metaphor, in my opinion, for the instrument of change. The Bible may be saying that this world was like the Garden of Eden, and something came along and screwed with it. Most people don't know this, but Satan/Lucifer is never mentioned in the book of Genesis. A described serpent convinces Adam and Eve to defy God and take a bite. What is that serpent? Sure, it seems logical to assume that the serpent is Satan, but that's an arrogant assumption. We have no right to jump to that massive conclusion. How do we know what the serpent was or what it represents? Again, the Bible does not tell us what the serpent is. Maybe your pastor told you so or said it was Satan or Lucifer. Is your pastor a demigod-like being who is familiar with all the ancient forms of evil in the universe? We can no more assume we know for sure what that serpent represents than a mosquito can write a review about a new Broadway musical. I believe the serpent is a metaphor. I don't believe a snake-like thing came in and spoke to Adam and Eve. I believe most of the Bible is tremendous truth written in metaphor. Number 12 is the Mandela effect. And so many people are so violently triggered by that subject, I'm skipping it. Okay, I'm skipping it for a few reasons. The main reason is there are a ton of Mandela effect channels. You don't need me to be number 1001 talking about it when there's 1,000 channels talking about it. And I will just talk for about 3 minutes and then we'll move on to number 13. And it's incredible that now that I said 3 minutes, you will actually have people so triggered by the topic that they're looking to jump ahead right now. They won't even give me 3 minutes. Think about that. What does that tell you? Look, folks, I'm Mandela affected. I'll give you my anchor effect at the end. Don't worry, guys. Just 2 more minutes. I'll move on. 2 more minutes. I am Mandela affected. But I just want to point something out. Don't you think it's pretty unlikely that over here, Matt has a certain grasp or understanding of how this reality construct might work? You know, just he has some good insights. And he's proven to have these insights now. He's been on 2 channels for, I don't know, it's pushing like 7 years or something. But it's amazing how over here he has a clue. But when it comes to the Mandela effect, he's just another fooled asshole. Now, is that possible, guys? At some point, do I ever get a little bit of the benefit of the doubt? No matter how much this subject makes no sense to people that don't see it, that have no anchor effects, at least give me that it is unlikely that I'm just so fooled in this area, but I have a clue over here. And I just, I'm so going astray. No, it's because some of us see it and some of us don't. With the Mandela effect, there is no right or wrong answer. Okay? Those that see it plain as day. It's like one day you go to bed and your daughter Judy on Tuesday becomes Jane. You probably would notice it is that dramatic for people that experience the Mandela effect. For the anchor effects that we have, it's that dramatic. I need to wrap this up. My major anchor effect is Interview with the Vampire, a Vampire. To me, it's not a misremembering. It's not like, I think it was called Interview with a Vampire. I know it was called Interview with a Vampire, just as you know the name of your own son or daughter. Let's move on. Number 13, as to why this life may not be very real. And 13, guys, I'm assigning the least amount of credibility to. I don't even believe what they tell us about what space is or is not. I don't believe the description is accurate. I don't believe anybody can ever go to Mars. But this is a exhaustive list. I wasn't picking and choosing. This is every bit of information that exists in this reality as to how or why this may be some sort of a fluid reality. So I took every bit of information I could find. I don't put a lot of stock in this one, but nevertheless, the evidence generally supports that this life might not be that real. So I included it for that reason. Now, there are scientists, cosmologists, and theoretical physicists and astrophysicists who believe this is likely an illusory existence because of a theory called the holographic principle for black holes. Again, guys, I don't even believe a black hole is what they say it is. But nevertheless, again, I'm taking all the evidence from all sources. All right, I'm not doing a good job explaining that, so let me just finish this section. The holographic principle for black holes. Some people, and I don't mean just crazy conspiracy theorists like me, but people who are still respected in their communities, like certain tenured university professors, actually believe we could be living inside of a black hole right now. This is a real theory. And it's not just coming from everybody that's in on it. New theories suggest that black holes may not be singularities where everything just gets crushed. They could potentially be wormholes or even something as strange as what was presented in the movie Interstellar. There is extensive writing about the outer edges of black holes being able to, quote, absorb information of anything captured by the black hole. that information or digital copy could potentially be projected inside the black hole itself to reanimate what was captured. Now, they're actually talking about this in universities. This sounds crazier than any of the shit that we talk about, but this is like Stephen Hawking science. It's all very complicated, but the point is, it ain't just us conspiracy nuts claiming our lives may be a simulation. A lot of, quote, mainstream scientists say that this black hole theory is possible. Elon Musk has even said it too, but as you know, I don't really give a shit what Elon Musk says. I might listen to some of the other frauds in science long before I listen to him. Amazingly, this new cutting-edge theory about holographic images projecting a reality from information contained on the periphery of a black hole is actually similar to Plato's allegory of the cave. The very first pondering that reality as perceived by the human may be something entirely else than what our senses say tell us it is. This creates now a fascinating loop. We have Plato's allegory of the cave in 400 BC talking about the possibility of a projected fake reality. Then for thousands of years we have people saying how real everything is. Now, with advanced science, we have them suggesting we may live again in a fake reality, a black hole simulation eerily similar to Plato's original allegory of the cave. Everything coming full circle like this is just more evidence that a script of some kind is running. If a script is running, then reality is some sort of construct, no matter how real anybody thinks anything is. Number 14. The concept of the avatar and the reality video game experience resonates with the inner knowing of millions of people and can be traced back to ancient beliefs. It's said looking for consciousness inside the brain is like looking for the baseball play-by-play announcer inside the FM radio. As mentioned, there's lots of evidence scattered across time that leaves breadcrumbs showing us the body is entirely separate from consciousness, and it's likely consciousness resides somewhere else, and not inside your brain or between your ears where it feels like it comes from. Although not the purpose of this section, it must be mentioned that the best clues on how this world really operates is presented to us in movies. I understand this statement will appear to be ridiculous to people new to these subjects. Even if you're not conspiratorial, which you will be by the end of this book, some would say creative works like movies and art reveal the truth of existence more than anything else, because when human beings create works of art, they formulate ideas from the cosmic source of inner knowing inside all of us that is expressed in a way that bypasses the ego or brainwashed frontal lobes of the brain. This book on several occasions will mention a all-powerful or cosmic knowledge that human beings have access to that essentially comes from within. Even if James Cameron didn't intentionally drop a hint from the initiated to the profane on how reality works in his movie Avatar, the idea spawned from creative fiction may have unknowingly tapped the truth. If one examines the movie Avatar, it's extremely similar to how some ancient cultures describe the illusory nature of reality. In the movie, Jake lives out a life somewhere else. While the big blue creature is awake, Jake's consciousness is projected into the avatar body. When the big blue avatar body sleeps, Jake's consciousness leaves the blue body. Another similarity to what we experience every night in dreams. We don't quite understand dreams and how they're generated, but as they're occurring, we never get a sense the scenario is coming from between our own ears, do we? The dream seems to be coming from somewhere else, doesn't it? A dream may actually be an aspect of consciousness going into an entirely different world. This concept has been around for thousands of years. Modern man, a know-it-all, arrogantly assumes a dream must be coming from his own brain and his own skull while he sleeps. It has to be that way, only because he's too obtuse to see other possibilities. The fish must assume that the tank is all the water in the world because he can't comprehend the Atlantic Ocean. Look at the way people refer to their body, like it's not even theirs, or it's just something they have like a bicycle. You've heard people say things like this countless times. If I stay up late 3 nights in a row, my body starts to break down. Or, I don't like to go to the doctor to get drugs because I believe the body heals itself. People are always referring to my body or the body like it's something that's not even part of who they really are, or something they're renting from Hertz. Why? Many would say language is chosen for a reason and brings forth hidden truth. Why is it so crazy to think of the body as something entirely separate from what you call you? Do you have any control of your foot making a new callus? In the 2 days your body fights a cold virus before you show any symptoms, do you have any clue whatsoever there's a massive battle being waged inside your own bloodstream? Well, why not? Why can't your body give you a simple message like this? Hey you! Hey you! Don't go to that party tonight on South Street. Don't stay out till 3 a.m. Inside here, we're battling a cold virus right now, and it's a tough one, buddy. If you divide our forces by making a quarter of us defend against every girl that coughs in your face tonight, we won't be able to hold this virus off any longer. Now get back in the goddamn house and go to sleep. Think about it. If your body battles a flu virus for a day or two before you show any symptoms, why can't your body friggin' tell you about it? Why can't it produce even a small little rash on the back of your hand, a sign or a symbol, so you know what to do? Ooh, I better stay in and relax. Make a list of every bodily process from heartbeats to sweating. You don't have a say over any of it, do you? It's like driving a car. You decide when to hit the gas going up the hill, but your automatic transmission decides for itself if it needs to downshift to find extra power. A lot of people have equated this reality to playing a video game. When you're playing a character in World of Warcraft, or in the original game about controlling avatars, The Sims, what happens to you, the player, when your character dies in the game? Nothing happens to the player. You simply take over a new character and play again. According to some, life is that simple. You aren't here at all. You are somewhere else. Your body dies someday, so what? You move on. From a cosmic perspective, this life is 1,000,000 times faster than the blink of an eye. People laugh at an insect like the mayfly that only has a 1-day lifespan and think how screwed he is. Trust me, from the perspective of almost every other object in the universe, from the sun to the Rock of Gibraltar, they would see no difference in the length of your life versus the mayfly's. No difference at all. A single day is perceptually the same as 100 years if you back up far enough and look down. Those who understand how short and fleeting this life is have questioned certain interpretations of the Bible. If life is a cosmic blink of an eye, does it make sense so much would be riding on that single blink? Eternal happiness in heaven or forever torture in hell based off such a tiny sample size as this fleeting life? It's like a university professor declaring final grades 10 seconds into the first class on the first day of the semester. He comes to the podium and says, "Well, y'all came in here and pulled up your chair. That's all I need to see to base your final grades upon." On the other hand, deep down, we know this life has tremendous meaning and consequence and purpose, even though it's fleeting. The meaning of life may simply be to discover that life has meaning. We're here for a reason. There is consequence to just screwing off and doing what thou wilt, like Jay-Z would have you do. Perhaps the incredible consequences of heaven and hell presented by religion is simply a reminder to take this existence very seriously. However, I doubt personally that anyone is doomed to hell for the cosmic equivalent of a blink of a blink of a blink of an eye. And we're about a third of it, or 30 years of it, we're too immature and dumb to accomplish anything from a spiritual perspective. What can somebody aged 0 to 30 really hope to accomplish about understanding who they are and life? So it's even less than a blink of an eye. Number 15. Our body does not fit the reality of this environment. It's far too fragile, our skin too thin, our joints too weak, our muscles not strong enough. A silverback gorilla could walk up to you, grab each of your wrists, and pull your arms out of the sockets while eating a banana. A grizzly bear could rip your head off with a flick of its wrist, and then lie down for a snooze. We are sickly little creatures in this realm, human beings. Hundreds of millions of years of, quote, evolution couldn't solve sunburn? Put us out in the cold rain overnight in December, and we'll cough for months, while a beaver swims around under the ice and bubble farts. Do feral cats line up at CVS for flu shots? Sure, we're told the smarts of man overcame all these physical limitations years and years ago. But think about 1,000,000 years ago. Go back far enough then when we weren't that smart. How did we make it long enough to become smart in the first place with such a fragile body? Even with supposed intelligent tools like sharpened sticks, we would have gone extinct a long, long time ago, facing off against real predators every day and every single night. Go sharpen a stick and head down to your local zoo. See how well you do in the tiger cage with a sharpened stick. Now, if anyone is suggesting that we were stronger and faster back then, with thicker skin and stronger lungs that don't succumb to bronchitis and pneumonia every other year or every other winter, then why would we have lost whatever genetic toughness was built up over the centuries or millennia? Didn't Darwin preach, quote, survival of the fittest? These traits would have aided our survival right up to the 20th century, where only recently heat and refrigerators made survival kind of easy. So where did millions of years of genetic toughness go if we ever had it? I'll tell you, we never had them in the first place. Physical survival traits built up over millions of years would not have been lost in a century or two. Darwin is bullshit. Now, what I just said is only shocking because of your lifelong conditioning. It only sounds arrogant because of a lifelong brainwashing process that's called K through 12. A guy like me blogging in his underwear shall not dare ever question Darwin and the 2,000 university professors that have his poster on the ceiling above their beds. I'm sorry for however it sounds. All I did was present facts and ask you to use common sense, which ain't so common anymore. Here's another one. Go ask Darwin to explain why Northern Europeans and Eskimos are mostly hairless. Yes, a Russian with a thick, hairy chest is mostly hairless. That little bit of hair doesn't help him keep warm. That's not even 1% of the thick coat like a winter squirrel has. The beaver and otter have pelts 5 times thicker than even the squirrel. Women don't have any protective body hair for the most part. Eskimos and Indians in Alberta, Canada, for example, can be hairless. How? What happened to the survival of the fittest? About half the planet has nighttime temperatures that drop below freezing at some time during the year. Wasn't there like a 10,000-year ice age too? In all this evolution, the human body couldn't even make some warm hair? Sorry, the whole Darwin presentation is crap. In my opinion, he didn't get anything wrong. Its intention was to mislead. As you'll see, that's how this world works, and that's how the system who runs it operate. The Earth supposedly has been here for billions of years, and we have a history going back about 5,000 or 6,000 years? May as well be 5 weeks. From a cosmic perspective, there's no difference. Do you realize how absurd that is, a tiny 5,000-year history? It's like taking a bite of your meatball sandwich and 1 second later not being able to tell anybody what you had for lunch, when the meatball is in your mouth and the sandwich is still in your hand. Sure, let's just go on believing that this civilization is all that ever was for billions of years on this planet, plane, or whatever it is. For hundreds of millions of years, we were told we were small rat-like mammals, just trying not to get stepped on by dinosaurs. Now, I'm looking inside myself right now to confirm that truth. The answer inside me? Poppycock. If you start to think big, the other possibilities must also be put on the table. That the Earth isn't really that old. That's on my table. I don't care what their carbon dating says. The script of society tells us to forget the endless legends of other civilizations having existed, such as Atlantis, for example. Who cares if these stories come from multiple cultures across almost all languages? Oh, that's just all kid stuff and fairy tales, Atlantis and Lemuria. We're the only civilization that's ever been here. Go on, keep believing that makes sense, that over 1 billion years have passed, that's what they tell us, and our history, the history of all intelligent life can only be traced back a few thousand years. I remind you that we went from the bicycle being invented to supersonic flight in only about 100 years. Imagine if there was a civilization of humanoids that existed before us, anywhere back through time. They would have, at minimum, 1,000,000 years to refine their technology. Do you think they'd still be here with us, content to sit on the 405 freeway in Los Angeles and beep horns at each other? They'd be fucking out of here and far away from this madness. In 2019, the world is an insane asylum. This doesn't mean the ancient cultures got in their Elon Musk rocket ships and blasted off. That method of travel likely can't take anyone anywhere. Loading a metal thermos up with thousands of tons of liquid fuel and then, quote, lighting it to blast off is ridiculous and beyond primitive, no matter where anybody can go or can't go using that method. The birds in Florida laugh their ass off when they see something fly up from Cape Canaveral. There are likely many ways to travel, in this dimension or the next, not understood by us, but likely understood by ancient civilizations. Have you ever bought the gimmick toy and mixed up sea monkeys as a kid? As a kid, we believed we were creating some kind of life, but it was just yeast, I think. Maybe that's what we are to these other races, an experiment of some kind. If you believe man can never travel out of the solar system in space, well, don't be so limited. There may be other ways out, like portals to other dimensions, the folding of time-space. Who knows? People who only had bicycles 150 years ago and horses the year before don't have many answers to the big questions. Modern man is arrogant with all the answers. I'm the one that says, hey, everything's on the table. We just don't know what the hell's going on. Number 16 in a long list of why this life and this reality most likely isn't very real or solid. How many times in our lives have we heard, you can't break the laws of physics? It's the immutable truth that they'll fall back on every time. Except light breaks every one of these laws every single time. So which is it, scientists? You can't break the laws of physics, but then you say in the next sentence, light can do it. The one I'll touch on here is what they call the constant speed of light. Now this is so bizarre that no one can say this aspect of light, at least a little bit, doesn't support the crazies like me who think life is some sort of matrix or illusion. Say a man stands in a field and shoots a rifle bullet. The bullet speed is measured at 1,000 miles per hour, for example. Have the same man fire that rifle while sitting in the passenger seat of a NASCAR race, the bullet speed is now measured at 1,200 miles an hour. Simply the bullet speed plus the additional velocity he's moving while in the NASCAR. Light or photons don't behave like this at all. For example, if there are 50 different types of airplanes moving in totally different directions at radically different speeds, and they all took out a flashlight, the speed as measured by themselves or measuring any of the others in the experiment is the exact same speed, no matter who is coming, who is going, and in which direction. If you stick a flashlight out the window of a jet and shine it forward, the speed of light remains exactly the same. You can't add to it, in other words, like our experiment where you shoot a rifle from the seat of a NASCAR race. You can't add to it. It's always constant. To me, the only way to explain this is that we potentially live in some sort of grand illusion based on light. I could go on to write 20 more pages about how, quote, quantum particles break the laws of physics up and down. For example, there's quantum entanglement. It means if particle number 1 moves left, particle number 2, or the particle it's supposedly entangled with, moves at the exact same time in the exact same way. They say, even if that other entangled particle is on the other side of the universe. It's the principle of if there were two identical twins and you punch one in the face in New York, the other one feels the exact same punch, for example, sitting in Los Angeles. Now this science is accepted by every university professor in the country. And because a lot of these university professors at the University of Alabama and Arkansas just put their pants on and are regular old people not in on it, I think there's something to this. I don't think it's all a big hoax at this point. Everything they say about quantum particles. No. We're almost at the point where if you believe what they say about quantum particles and their behavior, or collapsing the wave function, or quantum particles can be different things depending on if it's being observed. If you believe any of that, look around. This can't be real. Okay, it's almost 10 to 1 is conservative in terms of the amount of evidence that this is not real at all. This is some sort of grand illusion versus everything is real. And we come to the final number on the list, number 17. At the macro level, the large level, not the quantum, why does the entire physical universe fit perfectly into the mathematical equations of academic eggheads? Newton, Einstein, even today's professors use math to precisely predict cosmic events like the movement of bodies around the solar system. Their egghead math, applied to the cosmos, is used in thousands of applications, like how long stars have before they go supernova, or to predict how light will bend around a black hole. Now, I don't know how much of what they're describing to me is true or not, but the math generally is accurate in whatever they're predicting. The point is the math here. Forget the examples. Point is, why would the universe give a shit about adhering to an equation? Why does the cosmos care to respect mathematical models and behave inside their confines? The point is, because everything at the macro level behaves using the rules of the mathematical models, it proves the illusion or matrix itself uses the same math as the basis of its underlying code. Of course, the quantum particles, the very, very small quantum particles we can't see, do stuff outside of this math. The math is the behavior and boundaries of this physical world, which is a term used to describe the part of the illusion that we souls, quote, live in and experience. The quantum particles don't call math master, so they reveal themselves to be something like the screen on which the temporary illusion for our souls play out. In the movie, Morpheus said, quote, the matrix has rules. Yeah, this is the math of this physical world that creates the, quote, laws of physics.